In this episode of the Range Minded Podcast, we talk about fellow gun owners, people that are just like you and me. We're the same. Are we, though? We're going to talk about Harris and Walz. Yeah, sure, fellow gun owners. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this episode of the Range Minded Podcast, episode 254. Greetings, fellow gun owners. Stay tuned. All right, just like the intro said, we're going to be talking about the lady that thinks she could be the next president of the United States. And honestly, she very well could be. And that worthless armband, or whatever you want to call him, the horse guy, Walz, like, seriously, these are our choices, friends. These are our choices. We got the only one that's actually, like, damaged the 2A, like, in a great deal in my generation. Well, maybe not so much. Anyway, Trump, who is abrasive and kind of an ass, right? Now, mind you, I think he's the right, or at least was the right president when he was president. I think he was supposed to be president. I think he did a good job with some things. But when we talk about, like, the pandemic and the shot and bump stocks, that kind of thing, not so much, right? There were some things, some issues that we all had with Trump. But contrast that, sorry, my voice is still, I'm still recovering. I'm not recovered yet. I still cough. In fact, I had a massive cough attack before we started. But Harris and Walz, like, for reals, like, this is what the Democrat Party thinks they want to run the country. Like, I don't know if I have many Democrat voters that listen to this show. Probably zero. I don't know. Maybe there's some. But for reals, like, you guys are comfortable with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. You had so many other so many other choices that actually had content that some substance to them that they could run the country, but you picked the most liberal and honestly one of the most disliked people in Congress, who didn't ever win a primary, who didn't get any votes the last time she ran for president, who is, how is she, like, a viable option? And then a no-name like Walz, who is extremely progressive. This blows my mind. So our choices for president are shit and the bag that the shit is in. That's basically our choices. Now, you can say which one is what. You can determine which candidate is what. I'm sorry to be vulgar, but that's really where we're at right now in the United States. But, you know, at least the bright side is that Harris and Walz are fellow gun owners, right? But they're not going to do. They're not going to take away our guns. I mean, a little bit of common sense, gun control, like, it's the right thing to do, right? But we're not gonna. The Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. We're not going to tarnish it. But I'm going to play a couple interviews. I want you to listen to them. I want you to decide for yourselves if what I say is different than what she says. And I think you're going to find that she's a liar. Like most politicians. Like all politicians. But first I want to show you this video. I stole it from Johnny B. Let's play that first. You gotta love Johnny B. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for like just borrowing this from him. But
she wants to confiscate your guns.
Then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit.
Oh. So let's talk about, so in the debate, I think I have some footage here of the debate where she says, actually I do, of where she says she's a gun owner. Her and Tim Walz are gun owners. He's a hunter. He's a bird hunter. And they always try to conflate the Second Amendment. Have you noticed that the left does this a lot when they talk about the Second Amendment? They try to say it's for hunting. They don't even say it's for sport, but they try to pigeonhole the Second Amendment into hunting. But nowhere in the verbiage, in the context of the Second Amendment does it mention hunting. Nowhere. Now, you and I know the purpose of the Second Amendment, right? A well-regulated militia. Oh my gosh, now I can't remember. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I knew I could get it. I just had to have a little reminder. And apparently I can't speak. It doesn't talk about hunting. It doesn't talk about sport shooting, target shooting. It doesn't talk about USPSA. It doesn't talk about muskets, even. It talks about the people's right to keep and bear arms, right? We know this. We understand this. So anyway, let's listen to what she has to say in the debate, okay? And then let's listen to what she says on the campaign trail.
And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Let me play you 2 interviews that she did. Now, again, these interviews are really intriguing because the questions are almost verbatim as well as her answers. Now, these are 2 totally different interviews at 2 totally different times. Oh, look, I've got Trump hands. 2 interviews, totally different times. She gives the same answer twice. I don't say that thing. People say that about her. I don't say that. Anyway, sorry, I had to do that. That wasn't a very good Trump. Anyway, let's listen to these 2 interviews. I want you just to listen to how they kind of sound the same. At least they sound the same to me. Check these out.
I'm switching gears again.
Okay.
Quick question. I want to talk to you about gun control. So you've said you support an assault weapons ban and universal background checks, and we actually learned during the debate that you are a gun owner.
She's just like us.
But in cities like Philadelphia, handguns are responsible for most homicides and violent crime. The most recent FBI data shows handguns were involved in 59% of murders in our country. How will you address the issue of the use of handguns? Because a push for an assault weapons ban only addresses a significant but small part of the problem.
So, first of all, yes, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz is a gun owner, and we're not trying to take anybody's guns away from them. But we do need an assault weapons ban.
Other than those
assault weapons are designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly, and have no place, have no place. I'm going to get to it.
Yes.
And have no place on the streets of a civil society. We need universal background checks, which, to your point about handguns, is about saying that it is just reasonable to want reasonable gun safety laws that say we should do background checks that we ought to know. It's just reasonable. You might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You might just want to know.
And respectfully, we do understand that.
But you're asking about...
I'm asking specifically about handguns, because many of those handguns aren't purchased in places.
Universal background checks apply to handguns.
Yes.
They do.
But in many instances, those handguns aren't even bought lawfully. Yes.
Which is why I also have been very adamant for years. In fact, I myself protested at a gun show probably 10, 15 years ago about the gun show loophole and why we need to close that. Because what ends up happening is that gun shows at flea markets, gun dealers are not, under existing law in the past, required to register
That's a lie.
their sales. And so you are exactly right that a lot of homicides, for example, a good number of them, I don't have the statistic in front of my mind, are committed with illegally purchased guns. And that's why we need to address each entry point in the issue, including universal background checks, closing the gun show loophole, and what we need to do as a general matter to focus not only on reaction to crime, but prevention of crime. So you're raising a very important issue that has many facets. including what we need to do in terms of reasonable gun safety laws and what we need to do around crime prevention, what we need to do around crime deterrence. But listen, I have personally prosecuted homicide cases. I have held the hands of mothers who have come to me crying, who have said, I only want to talk to Kamala, because they knew when they sat down, I would treat them with the dignity and respect that they were entitled and due.
Sure, honey. Sure.
About the loss of their child, often their son, to gun violence and the need to take it seriously.
And gang violence, most
And we
likely.
must take it seriously. In every way, understanding it's not just about a soundbite. It's about a comprehensive approach that deals with the tragedy of, to your point, everyday gun violence in America. It's real. It has had a profound impact in terms of trauma that, for the most part, has gone undiagnosed and untreated. The trauma that exists in communities around the violence of losing their children, losing a brother, losing a father, an uncle. All of that must be addressed, and we have to have a holistic response to it.
Are there things we haven't thought about yet? Because every time we bring up this issue of gun violence, universal background checks comes up and a ban on assault weapons. Are there other solutions that you're also thinking about that will get at this issue?
Absolutely. For example, part of what we did as vice president with the president, we were able to pass the first meaningful gun safety legislation in 30 years. And part of what that involved was millions and millions of dollars to put more mental health counselors in public schools. Right? Because we know that there is an aspect of this that is about treating the trauma and dealing with it at its source before it ends up manifesting itself in a problem. There is the work that we need to do that is about putting resources into communities around violence prevention. I've been a big advocate of that for years, which includes what we need to do around putting resources into community-based intervention that is not just requiring on the good people in the community to volunteer to do the intervention, but actually paying people to do it because it's a full-time job. It's about understanding what we need to do to, again, understand that, to your point, we have to have a holistic response to this issue and prioritize
she has a plan.
Instead of reacting to the tragedy that sadly
it doesn't really
they
have
are too predictable.
A lot, but it's her plan.
Let's all agree, enough of that. There are very few solutions that we haven't thought of. We need to put the resources into them.
Madam Vice President.
All right, now listen to this interview. This one was fairly recent. It was so the damn recording, this is the 18th of September. I believe this interview was a day or two ago. I can't remember for sure. I want to say it was like the 15th or 16th. I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't care. I don't really follow Miss Harris, Camilla. I don't follow her. Anyway, listen to this next interview. Listen to this next interview. I really am having a struggle communicating. I apologize. But listen how similar everything is. Listen to this.
Crime and public safety are two major issues
Well, this will be
right
good.
at the forefront of voters' minds. In Philadelphia as well, where
Funny,
crime
they talk
is a
about
significant
Philadelphia.
issue.
Both interviews.
When we talk about crime, the conversation turns to gun safety as well. And I think you actually probably caught a lot of people off guard, maybe a bit by surprise in the debate the other night when you mentioned that you are a gun owner. I know you said it in 2019 as well. I want to talk about your values on this issue. When it comes to gun ownership,
This is almost
where
the
do
same
you draw the line in America on
question
gun
as
ownership
that previous
and
interview.
gun
Almost
use?
exactly.
Well, like you said, Brian, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz, my running mate, is also a gun owner. We're not taking anybody's guns away.
Goody.
I
Except,
support the Second Amendment,
wait.
and I support reasonable gun safety
Oh,
laws.
reasonable.
Part of my approach to this is
Let's
I was
listen.
a career prosecutor for most of my career. I have personally prosecuted homicide cases.
Oh, yeah, just like you
I
mentioned
have
in the other interview.
personally looked at autopsies.
Mhm.
I have personally seen what
Has she
assault
held the
weapons
hands of
do
grieving
to the
mothers?
human body. And so I feel very strongly that it is consistent with the Second Amendment and your right to own a gun to also say we need an assault weapons ban. They're
Wrong.
literally tools of war.
Not
They were
not
literally
really.
designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly. I say we need universal background checks. The majority of NRA members support that.
No, they don't.
Why? Because it's just reasonable. You just might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to
Just like we've
themselves or others.
established,
You just might
background
want to know.
checks exist.
Two final
Universal
questions, if I
background
might.
checks are a little different. Okay, so maybe she's missed the mark. Maybe there's something else there that we don't understand. Let's just jump to her website. Maybe she has some policies that clarify what she's talking about. All right, let's do something that I don't. I do it so you don't have to. Like, my eyes are burning. This is Kamala's website here. She's a gun owner like you and me. She's just like us. She's just wants common sense. She's not gonna tarnish or take away or impugn on the Second Amendment in any way. Let's just check it out. So if we click over here on issues, click, and we'll just scroll down here. These are her issues and all this stuff. This is man, I wasn't just seeing these. Check this out. She has put Trump's 2025 agenda under everything. Oh, look, there's 2025 agenda. Oh, 2025 agenda. Is it down here far? Oh, look, Trump. She is absolutely obsessed with this. But let's see what she says about guns. Let's see. There it is. Make our communities safer from gun violence and crime. We're not going to prosecute the people that are breaking the law. No. We're going to make it harder for people who obey the law to obtain firearms for their self-defense as protected. One of the things granted under the Second Amendment, along with putting the tyrannical government in check. But that's a different story for a different time. Let's see what she says. As a prosecutor, Vice President Harris fought for violent crime by getting illegal guns and violent criminals off California streets. During her time as district attorney, she raised conviction rates for violent offenders, including gang members, gun felons, and domestic abusers. As Attorney General, Vice President Harris built on this record, removing over 12,000 illegal guns from the streets of California and prosecuting some of the toughest transnational criminal organizations in the world. In the White House, Vice President Harris helped deliver the largest investment in public safety ever, investing $15 billion in supporting local law enforcement and community safety programs across 1,000 cities, towns, and counties. President Biden and Vice President Harris encouraged bipartisan cooperation to pass the first major gun safety law in nearly 30 years, which included record funding hire to train over 14,000 mental health professionals for our schools. As head of the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, she spearheaded policies to expand background checks and close the gun show loophole. Under her and President Biden's leadership, violent crime is at its 50-year low, with the largest single-year drop in murders ever. As president, she won't stop fighting for let's try that again. Sorry, I kind of fell out of character there. Take 345. As president, she won't stop fighting so that Americans can have the freedom to live safe from gun violence in our schools, communities, and places of worship. She'll ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, require universal background checks, and support red flag laws that keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people. So, let's see. She will also continue to invest in funding for law enforcement, including hiring and training officers and people to support them, and will build upon proven gun violence prevention programs that have helped reduce violent crime throughout the country. What she's not saying is, it may be at a 50-year low because, I don't know, 25%, or maybe I think it's actually up to 40% of precincts aren't giving the data to the FBI. So those safer communities that she's talking about is a farce. It's because it's not being reported. That's an issue. You go walk through South Central LA, and see how that goes for you. Anyway, I thought you'd like to hear that in my amazing reading voice, my radio guy voice. Anyways, that's enough of that. Instead of just word salad, like you watch those 2 interviews where she said basically the exact same thing. Exact same thing. In fact, like I said, the question was pretty much exactly the same. And the answer was like a canned answer. It was exactly the same. And she even says that on the campaign trail. And like, I don't get this. She has this structured answer for everything. There's nothing off the cuff. There's nothing from deep in her bowels that have conviction. It's just say this talking point verbatim. And that's just what it is. My mom raised me in a middle class home. She saved lots of money. We had a simple house. Blah blah blah. Her parents are professors. She is not like you and me. She didn't work at McDonald's. Like, her lifestyle is way different than what I had, anyways. My family struggled all the time. I struggle to afford my bills more so now than ever. She's not middle class. Don't buy that BS. Anyways, check this out. Oh, here's a fun one. Let's listen to this one, shall we? Because she's just like you and me, everyday gun owners. I mean, she's never going to take anybody's guns, right?
For the 3rd time in a month, Vice President Kamala Harris visits Chicago. This time, she speaks before 2 gun violence prevention groups that are growing by the day. Moms Demand Action and Students Demand Action. Moms Demand Action! It's a group that began 10 years ago. Moms Demand Action has grown to 10 million members nationwide. Chicago's Valerie Burgess is one of its original volunteers after her son Craig was murdered in 2013.
People wouldn't even talk to us as moms volunteers. And now they not only talk to us, they seek us out. They want our support.
Moms in the red shirts have the full support of the Biden administration.
You put the pressure on the system.
Oh, yeah.
So that the system has to hear the voices and respond in some way.
Vice President Kamala Harris credits their activism in signing historic gun reform legislation. Harris was the keynote speaker of the Everytown for Gun Safety Conference at McCormick Place. It also included Students Demand Action.
How do you see my generation playing a role in this movement?
We are counting on you. We need you. You are critical to this issue. You are everything.
17-year-old Erin DeSantis was handpicked to ask Harris a question. She and other students met with the vice president for a private conversation before the event.
She's just very human like the rest of us. I think, there was really no big fanfare around it.
The Biden administration sees the gun violence issue as key to galvanize the youth vote. One, the Biden-Harris ticket knows it needs to win in 2024. And a vote, Harris says, is vital for the passage of common sense gun laws.
When your generation starts to vote in your numbers.
This is another great clip. Check this out. This is where it all began. This is how we know Tim and Camilla, whatever the hell her name is. They're just like you and me. They're gun owners. Listen.
So Tim is a hunter and a gun owner who believes, as the majority of gun owners do, that we need reasonable gun safety laws in America.
Reasonable gun owners.
So as governor, he expanded background checks and increased penalties for illegal firearm sales.
Oh, good for you, Tim. Good for you. Infringing on the law-abiding.
And together, when we win in November, we are finally going to pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban.
It's all part of the Safer Communities Act, right? That's all part of the same thing. It's interesting, isn't it?
Shooting in Colorado has renewed calls for tougher gun laws in the U.S., but as Natalie Brand reports from the White House, there is once again stiff opposition to any new gun control laws.
See what she.
Vice President Kamala Harris stepped up calls by the White House for new gun safety laws during an interview with CBS This Morning.
This is not about getting rid of the Second Amendment. It's simply about saying we need reasonable gun safety laws. There is no reason why we have assault weapons on the streets of a civil society. They are weapons of war. They are designed to kill a lot of people quickly.
Tuesday, President Biden urged Congress to pass a new ban on assault weapons and to immediately take up measures already passed in the House. One would close the Charleston loophole, which allows the sale of a firearm to proceed if a background check is not completed within 3 days. The other would require background checks on nearly all gun purchases, including those involving private sellers.
I have committed to put legislation to expand background checks on the floor of the Senate. We will debate it. We will vote on it.
Vice President Harris would not rule out the possibility of President Biden using executive action to enact.
Look, I know this episode is a little bit chopped up. There's a lot of different segments. I actually recorded a bunch of different video segments and kind of compiled them all together. So I know some of the edits are a little funky. It doesn't really flow quite right. But you know what? It's almost midnight, and you're just going to have to get what you get. I don't really care. I do care. That's wrong. I care. I care a lot about you guys. Well, guess what it boils down to is the message I want you to hear from all these sound bites, from these video clips, is that the people that are trying to get your vote don't care about your rights. Let me say that again. The people that are trying to get your vote don't care about your rights. They care about your vote. Now, like I said, Trump really wasn't the greatest two-way president. We've established that numerous times. Okay, we're not going to beat that dead horse anymore. But at least with him, we know that we're going to get more judges, right? We have the potential of having some good, constitutionally minded judges for the future, especially the Supreme Court. Like, that's a big one. I guess we also know what we're going to get if Harrison Walz gets in. The difference is I don't believe they'll be able to push everything they're trying to push. They say the same thing every election cycle. They're going to pass the assault weapons ban. They're going to gut the Second Amendment. They're going to pass the assault weapons ban. They're going to gut the Second Amendment every way possible. She's going to try it through any kind of means, whether it be the right way, through legislation, coming up through the House of Representatives and Congress. I guess that's the best way to put it. Or she'll do it through fiat via executive order, which really has no standing because we have something called separation of powers. It's there for a reason. But I think she'll try it. They're going to push it extremely hard. What I think they can achieve is things like a magazine ban. They could probably get an assault weapons ban passed like they did with Clinton in '94. The difference is there won't be a sunset. So it's going to be a mess. Now, they could get it passed, but then it's going to end up going through the Supreme Court. But that's going to take years. And so it's just going to be a jumbled up mess. AR-15s are definitely common use. Definitely they meet that criteria through Heller. Gosh, sorry, my I edited it out, but I had another pretty aggressive cough. I had to slice it up, so it is what it is. But you really need to be paying attention to what's going on. Okay? You really need to be getting involved. It's only through the presidential election cycle that our voice matters in the grand scheme of things. And we've talked about this a million times. The most important thing is your local, your civil, the elections at the lowest possible level. That's really what matters the most to you and your family. Making sure you get a solid sheriff elected that isn't going to deal with the BS. That's going to follow the Constitution, the oath of office that he took, and that hires good people that think like he does. That's going to be the biggest deal for you and your family. And then you go up from there. You work on your state and your representation, within your state. That's the next biggest thing. That is what will change the United States, in my opinion. I know the presidential election is a big deal because they do have an immense amount of power. But you got to think long term. You got to think what's going to impact you and your family. Yes, presidential elections and these national elections, they impact your pocketbook. They impact your interest rates. Some of you, it impacts your jobs, especially if you're employed federally. I get it. But you got to worry about your family too. So just pay attention to that. Maybe I need to scoot closer to the mic. Sorry. That coughing fit, I scooted back and never scooted back forward. Let's I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm going to keep this episode pretty short. Like I said, I chopped it up. There's a lot of edits, so it's probably frustrating for some of you guys. But I want to share a little bit about my experience still with this health stuff. Just to keep you guys, maybe some of you guys are interested in what's going on with my body. Maybe you like my body. So I visited a few professionals. I visited a pulmonary specialist, which gave me some hope. I still got to have a couple more tests, according to him. I'm really tired of giving blood for them to test. I'm tired of sitting in front of a machine. I had a couple tests these past few days. I'm kind of sick of it, but I also need answers. Like I do not know what's going on with my body, and I kind of need to figure that out. So like I said, prayers are still welcome. I do have a GoFundMe. I probably should have set up a different kind of account. I'll link it below. If you can help, that's great. If not, whatever, that's fine. The bills are starting to stack up, and they're getting kind of frustrating. I mean, it is what it is, right? We all have struggles, so it is what it is. Anyway, I'm not dead. I'm still alive. I still have the coughing fit. The lung doctor, the pulmonary guy, gave me an inhaler, which really worked awesome yesterday. Today, In a few weeks, they're gonna check my lung capacity, my lung function, after I use the meds that the lung guy gave me. So that'll be a plus. I really hope things work out. The possibility of me getting, he says, like, I was going to say Alzheimer's, asthma. Apparently I have Alzheimer's because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. The chance of me getting asthma because, I've been a carpenter since I was 14 are pretty high. Maybe I inhaled some other stuff. I told him about the hotel experience in Casper, and all the other doctors that I've met with kind of shrugged it off. He was the only one, because he's a lung guy, the only one that said, yeah, that could totally be a possibility. You could have inhaled some mold. Dude, that's the only thing that I did that changed, in my my routine. It's the only possible thing I can think of that caused issues with my lungs. And he's the only guy that finally said, yeah, that totally could have been it. So, man, I wanted to give that guy a hug because he actually validated something I think was a major issue. Don't stay in Casper. Sorry, Casper, but not sorry. Something else I wanted to talk about. Boy, talk about random, right? Random times, random. So I've been watching, did you guys see, what Israel did with the beepers from Hezbollah? Dude, they intercepted this whole shipment of pagers and put some explosive compound in there. And then when they texted a certain number, those things blew up. And they injured, I don't know, it was almost 2,000 pagers exploded. And they injured a bunch. I probably should have looked it up. I actually wasn't planning on talking about it tonight, but they injured a ton of Hezbollah members, a ton. Well, then I'm watching the news this afternoon, going through some stuff. And they've blown up computers. They've blown up radios and some cars, some electric scooters, solar panels. Don't piss off the Mossad, I guess, right? this is like James Bond stuff. This is like crazy. Like, how did they get in there and intercept and compromise all of this digital stuff, which makes me worried. Like what's the possibility? I mean, obviously it's not zero. So what are you doing? This is a question for you. For you, not for me. I mean, I guess it is for me too. What are you doing with your electronic devices? Are you throwing them in Faraday cages? Like, I didn't think this would be an issue, but it could definitely be a real issue. It made me think. I was on Twitter on the space last night. We were talking about the pagers, and then I brought up how warfare's kind of changed a little bit, right? We're seeing Ukraine use drones, like small drones. Obviously, drones been around for a long time in military use, but not like $300 DJI drones. It's super interesting. And so I've been watching a little bit like how Russian soldiers are starting to incorporate shotguns, which made my mind think, well, do I need a shotgun rig? And honestly, don't tell my wife, but I've been buying some stuff to build a shotgun rig. Don't say anything. She's totally not listening. I mean, that's not why I decided to build a shotgun rig, but it made me think, like, what am I doing for my security, my home security, my family security? The world's getting crazy, and it's only going to get worse. Another thing that's happened was a couple days ago was the second assassination attempt against Trump. Now, the guy, I'm not going to say his name, but the dude had a clapped out SKS with serial number scratched off. Apparently, allegedly, the guy had a pretty lengthy record, but never served any time. Like, he had a lot of felonies, but no real time served. Kind of weird. But with this last thing, he'd hid in the bushes. Somehow he knew or had a pretty good hunch that President Trump was going to be at his golf course in Florida. So he hid in these bushes. He had some ceramic tiles that he had set up as a shield, a ballistic shield, which probably wouldn't have worked great. Maybe it would have been okay for a shot or two, but most likely not. He has this clapped out SKS with no serial number on it. The serial number was destroyed. There's a felony. He'd been hiding in the bushes for 12 hours. Now, either it was a lucky guess that Trump was going to be at the golfing that day, or maybe he had some kind of information. But sitting there 12 hours, he set up a GoPro. Obviously, the intent was to film him shooting Donald Trump. Now, somehow, luckily, the way the story goes is Secret Service saw the barrel sticking through the chain link fence. So obviously this guy, I mean, he's basically a hitman, a hitman that doesn't know how to hide in the bushes very well. So they shot at him. They missed him. I don't think he shot, like I said, but there were a few gunshots. And he bounces, gets in his car, and takes off. Luckily, a citizen saw what was going on, took a picture of his license plate. It was like 50 miles away. They finally apprehended this guy. They took him alive. He's got this weird history of being in Ukraine, recruiting foreign fighters for the war in Ukraine. Like there's a lot of conspiracy theories. I'm not going to go down any of those holes. I'll just say that the dude has a lot of questions associated to him. I don't know if we're ever going to find out. I don't know if it's going to be like the Vegas shooting type thing where it just kind of vanishes. The dude's weird. Very strange. Very strange. But again, like watching all this stuff makes me think, what do I need to change for my everyday carry? Do I need to find a more dynamic way to carry something a little bit more powerful in my vehicles? Which opens a whole different can of worms, because how are you going to secure like an AR pistol in a vehicle to keep someone from stealing it? Because a lot of guns that are used in crime are stolen out of vehicles. So how do you secure your mobile firearm? Do you hide it somehow? Like all these questions are coming up. I used to throw a rifle in my pickup, just put it under the seat with a couple extra mags. I didn't really worry about people stealing stuff just because we used to live in a pretty safe area, but that is definitely changing. So now if I got to really think about how am I going to secure that? I know there's some fantastic vehicle security devices. Like if you want to look at some cool stuff, there's a company called BlackRack out of Boise. They make a lot of police cruiser firearms security stuff, but I think I know you can get some civilian side stuff. It's not quite the same as the police stuff, but it's expensive. But and it also involves you like permanently securing a solution in your vehicle, but it is absolutely secure. It's pretty interesting stuff. BlackRack, check it out of Boise. So yeah, my mind's just been kind of like, what do I do with this information that I'm watching? The pagers, the drones, the crazy stuff we're seeing with all the immigration. I mean, there's Idaho. I'm in Idaho. A lot of you know. But what people aren't talking about is there's a lot of immigration coming into Idaho. I look at some of these other major cities that are sanctuary cities. Boise is a sanctuary city. It's not going to take long before, and I don't mind if these people assimilate. But there's a lot of people that are here not to assimilate. They're here to be nefarious, and that's just going to bleed out of these communities into the more rural areas. So what am I doing, and what are you planning on doing to secure your castle? I really feel like, I look at Canine Reaper on X. If you want to see some interesting stuff that's going on in South Africa, which is very possible that kind of stuff can happen here because they're having a lot of similar issues where the border's not secure. There is no border. There's chaos. There's a lot of drugs and trafficking of all sorts of nature coming across their borders. There's people stealing. There's just chaos. And that chaos can happen anywhere. I mean, this is like Johannesburg in South Africa. It's not these rural country bumpkin towns. Like Johannesburg's a big city. And they're dealing with this stuff. And it's not out of the realm of reality that we could deal with that stuff starting in our border towns. I mean, we have that, was it Honduran gang, TDA, that's raising havoc all over the place, apparently, allegedly. Like, this is not out of the realm of possibility. So what are you guys doing to change your security platform? The other thing I've been thinking a lot about is church security. Because that's like fish in a barrel. What are you guys doing to keep your family safe? Honestly, that's not something I want an answer from. I don't want you to share that answer. That's something that you need to evaluate. And you need to answer on your own. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I didn't mean to drop down on this super negative hole, but I mean, it is what it is. We'll go ahead and close the show, but I really wanted to tell you guys how much I appreciate you guys, how much I love you guys. Don't forget, I have patches available. There's the common use bulldozer. There's just a little 2A patch. It's like a 1-inch square. I still have Dangerous Unusual, the platypus patch, and the range-minded patch. All those are available. If it's something that you want, if you like that idea, go ahead and DM me. We'll work out prices and shipping and that kind of thing. I wanted to do it on the website, but once I figure out how much it actually costs me to have a shop on my website, it's ridiculous, and I can't afford to do that, especially right now with some financial constraints. That being said, again, I'm going to link my GoFundMe if you're willing to help out. It's not going to the show, honestly. I actually set up originally for the show, but it's not going to the show. It's going for my family. With me being sick, there's been a significant not family struggle, but a financial struggle that is just an extra burden that's kind of tough for me right now to deal with. So I'll link that in there as well. If you can help, cool. If not, whatever. I'll take prayers, honestly. God is amazing. And I do have experience with prayer that it definitely works. Anyway, you guys be safe. I want you to really think and evaluate your personal and family security. Please take that part serious. Do some deep thinking about what changes you need to make, because I have a feeling things are going to get crazy, especially before the election. It's just going to keep getting nuts. Anyway, stay safe. Take somebody shooting, for reals. Bring more members into the family, because we need to keep our rights safe. If the Second Amendment fails or falls, it's a house of cards after that. And we got to keep the freedoms for the next generations. Love you guys. Be safe, and don't do dumb things. Peace out. See you guys. In this episode of the Range Minded Podcast, we visit a Diggit Pop, a Foodie Bahoo. Suddenly I'm Joe Biden. Yeah. In this episode of the Range Minded Podcast, we talk about fellow gun owners who are just like you and me. They're the same, right? Yeah, not so much. We're going to talk about fluffer nuts and dick wiggles. Shit.